Will injecting steam into your offset smoker improve the quality of your ribs? I tried injecting steam into my offset smoker with a brisket I cooked a few weeks ago, and it improved the smoke flavor, it improved the juiciness, and it cooked the brisket twice as fast. Will we have the same results with ribs? We're gonna find out in this video, so let's get smoking. All right guys, we're doing 2 racks of spare ribs for this video. I'm just doing 1 rib for each experiment. I'll put 1 rack of ribs on my Oklahoma Joe's Longhorn offset smoker. That'll be the control rack of ribs, so the one that will compare to the other rack of ribs that is going to be smoked on the Oklahoma Joe's Highland, which I've modified to have a steam injector. I picked up a cheap steam cleaner from Amazon. I'll link it in the description section below if you guys want to pick one up. It's slightly annoying because I have to refill it every maybe 20 or 30 minutes, but I did just recently order a sort of timed device that's used for sprinklers, where I'll probably be able to turn it on every 20 minutes for 15 minutes or some other interval, and then I won't have to continually fill the thing up all the time. But that's the plan. My hypothesis is that I'm gonna have similar results to my brisket experiment where I injected steam into the offset smoker, i.e. it's going to cook faster, I'm gonna get some better bark on the ribs that I cooked with the steam injected offset smoker, and it will be juicier. That's what I'm thinking anyway. I don't know if the same will hold true with ribs as it does with brisket, but we're gonna find out. So what I'm gonna do first is I like to remove the membrane from my ribs. Some people don't, but I find, especially when I'm doing competition barbecue, I've even done competition barbecue judging classes, and I've tasted ribs with the membrane on and without the membrane on, and I find like they just have a little bit more of a papery texture when you leave the membrane on. And if you don't really render the ribs, take them all the way up to 200 plus degrees and really kind of kill your ribs to render that membrane, then it kind of turns out a little bit papery and dry. That's just my personal opinion though. Okay, so I'm just lifting up the membrane a little bit, and then I'll get my paper towel. Running out of paper towel here. And then I'm gonna rip the membrane off. I mean, some people are really good at this and they can rip the whole thing off in one fell swoop, but I just try to do my best. I'm not a superhuman. And honestly, sometimes you just get lucky. Sometimes these membranes just rip right off, like you're just peeling them off and they're super easy, and other times you have to fight for every inch of them. Okay, get rid of that. Get rid of some of this fat. Large fat deposits here on these spare ribs. Okay, so the membranes are ripped off these guys. I'm just going to disinfect my hands with these wipes. I'm gonna keep a clean hand to apply the rub, and this is gonna be my rib hand, my rib flipping hand. So we'll start with the top of the ribs, because I'm gonna make a couple passes here, and we'll apply this. Oh, I didn't even mention what I was using, guys. This is Sasquatch Barbecue Eruption Rib Rub from Spiceology. Thank you, Spiceology, for sending me this stuff. I asked them to just surprise me with some rubs and send me a bunch, and they surprised me. This rib rub is actually really good. I was super surprised. I've never tasted anything like it, so yeah, Sasquatch Barbecue Eruption Barbecue Rub from Spiceology. Really good. Well, something like just fell on it. That was like a piece of foil, but anyway. So I'll just apply a little bit of that on the top. Get these guys. Now I'm gonna do the bottom. And then I'm gonna do one more pass on the top, just so I get lots of rub. Let's do the same for this guy. Oh man, this rub smells so good. Okay, and one more pass on the top of the ribs. And we'll get the sides just for good measure. Looks good to me, so I'm gonna let these guys sit on the counter for maybe 30 minutes while I go light the smokers, and I'll take you guys out with me to show you how I do that. All right guys, starting with the modified Highland here, what I've done is I've drilled a hole in the chamber right here next to the firebox, and I've got my steam cleaner. So what I'm gonna do is I'll take this head off here, and then I just poke this little hole inside the hole here. I'm gonna put this to the side. install this little guy. Here we go. Prop that up just to get the cord away from the heat because it's made of plastic. Now I'm going to turn it on and I'll bring you guys over to the firebox to see what's going on here. So that's starting up. It's squirting quite a bit of water to start with, but it should start turning into steam momentarily. Okay, there we go. It's ripping now, so you can see that it's injecting a lot of steam into the chamber. It's going to go right over the ribs. When the hot air from the firebox comes up through this gap, it's going to kind of superheat that steam, and it's going to add a lot of moisture to the cook chamber, and hopefully it's going to make our ribs better, but we'll find out. Now that the steam is going, I'm going to use my grill gun to light the firebox here. And we'll shut the lid and we'll just wait for this guy to come up to temperature while we move over to the Oklahoma Joe's Longhorn, which I've set up over here. Same deal, I'm just using my grill gun to light the firebox. Okay, we'll let that get up to temperature. Taking a look at our control offset here. I've got a large water pan. I usually run a large water pan. Actually, I always run a large water pan because it just helps block the radiant heat coming from the firebox. And it evens out the temperatures a lot more in the cooking chamber. It adds humidity, a lot of good things that a water pan does. And I like to use a big one for that reason. So, okay, I'll let that come up to temperature and then we'll get our ribs on shortly. All right, guys, these ribs are looking really nice now. The rub has kind of integrated with the meat. The salt has dissolved. They're looking really nice. So I'm gonna put them on the smokers now, starting with the Longhorn, the control brisket. Not much to explain here. I'm just putting them with the long side kind of parallel to the inside of the chamber like this. Water pan is blocking the radiant heat. That's just gonna sit there and we're gonna smoke them at 250 degrees for the next 2 to 3 hours until they get some nice bark and color and they get to around 165 internal, at which point I'll wrap them. Now this smoker is a little bit different because of all that steam going into the cooking chamber. What I found is when I'm aiming for 250, what I usually get is like 225, but even with that low temperature, because there's steam in there, it's carrying more energy, it is preventing evaporative cooling from the meat, it is still cooking the meat just as fast as the 250 degree offset smoker. So that's an interesting kind of side effect of injecting steam into an offset. Okay, we'll close that up and we'll check back on it in about 1 or 2 hours. All right, guys, it's been 2 hours and you can see the control brisket is smoking away behind me in the Oklahoma Joe's Longhorn. We're gonna temp it now. And for that, I'm going to use my Chef's Temp Final Touch X10. Let's open this guy up. Whoo, smoky. Damn, give that fire some more air. All right, so the ribs are looking quite dry on the outside. The bark is definitely set. It's got some nice color. Let's see what the temperature is. We're sitting at about 138, 148, 150, 155 in the edges. So I'd probably give this guy another hour until we get to 165. But while we wait for these guys to get to 165, we're gonna head on over to the Highland and see how our steam injected ribs are doing and see if they're faring any better than these. Okay, wow. So a lot darker, as you can see. It looks like the surface of the ribs is much more moist than the last set of ribs we saw. Let's give these guys a temp. So we're sitting at 165, 165 in the middle. On the edges, we're getting 170. Over here, we're getting 171. You can see that the ribs are already starting to pull back from the bone. So these are actually getting quite tender already. So I'm gonna take these guys out and I'm probably gonna wrap them at this stage because they're looking really nice. They've got some nice dark color and they finished to the point of getting them to the wrap phase an hour earlier than the other ribs, which is really impressive. Okay, these ribs are actually looking really nice, really dark. they feel really tender, almost like I could eat them right now. So I don't know about this. I could probably just keep on steaming them until they're done because they're getting nice bark. It's not dissolving the bark. It looks pretty moist still, but I'm gonna wrap them just because that's the way I'm gonna do the other briskets as well. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get some butter here. Can I say that on YouTube? That's just my Canadian accent, guys. Don't worry about that. You guys pronounce it butter, I pronounce it butt-whore. Okay, so I'm gonna get a couple pats of butter here. Try not to cut myself with this insane knife from Dalstrong. And I'm gonna get some maple syrup because I like maple syrup. It's nice. It's not just because I'm from Canada, although I'm sure that's a factor. We'll kind of pat that on because that is going to help us apply some more of this rub. So we'll do a little bit more rub, like meow. And then we'll flip it over. Do the same to the back. This is very similar to what I do in competitions. Just slather it in as much sugar and butter and fat and salt and MSG as possible. There's no MSG on these particular ribs, but there probably should be. I love MSG. Okay, a little bit more rub. Rub, rub, rub. Rub-a-dub-dub. And we're gonna put that butter underneath. And I can put the ribs fat side down, bone side up, because that's just how I like to do it. I don't know if it's any better. And now, we're gonna carefully cinch this up. And make a little delicious rib package, or packet. I can kind of cinch it up like this, and it fully seals it, but it also makes it so that I can easily open it up and continue to check the ribs for doneness, which I'm gonna be doing a lot because after about an hour wrapped, or maybe 45 minutes, I'll continue to open this thing up every 15 minutes and check for doneness and tenderness until these ribs are done. Okay, so let's get these back on the smoker. I'm gonna continue to run the steam injection just to see what happens. My theory is that it should result in more energy transfer and more evenness of temperatures, even though the ribs are wrapped, and we might see these ribs actually get done a lot faster than the other ribs, all things considered equal, but we'll find out. Okay, let's get these back on the smoker. Alrighty, we're back at the Oklahoma Joe's Highland. We're gonna check on the control ribs, see how they're doing. Not as much smoke as last time. That's because the fire is burning a little bit better. Okay, let's temp these guys. 162, 160, ooh, it's still going up, still going up. We're 164, 165. Okay, 168. So nice color. The ribs are, or rather the bones are not pulling back like we saw on the other rack of ribs, interestingly enough, but we got some nice dark color. They were temping at 165, so we're gonna pull these off. I'm going to wrap them the exact same way, and then we're gonna put them back on the smoker, and I'll check back in about an hour for tenderness. Okay, it's been roughly an hour, so we're gonna check on the steam injected ribs here. Let's take them right out of the smoker, close that up so it's not hissing in our face. And I'll show you guys my finishing checks here. So this pulls open really easily, and I can take a look at the ribs. And I'll just come in, and the first thing I'll do is I'll just check them for tenderness and temperature. These are actually probing really tender right now. They're around 198, probably 200 plus over here. Yeah, 201 in the sides. These are actually probing like they're done. Nice bone pullback. So the second thing I'm going to do is just check to see how they bend. So I should be able to bend them, and they should start tearing, which they are. So these are pretty good. I think I'm going to call these done. So I'm going to just put these back in here. And I'm going to sauce these guys up. I'm not going too crazy on the saucery with this experiment because I want to taste the actual smoke flavor and see if these are any smokier than the control ribs. So I don't want to go too crazy. This is just a bit of Franklin barbecue Carolina style vinegar sauce mixed with, I put some brown sugar in it, I put some soy sauce in it, a little bit extra salt. Just something I kind of whipped up with stuff I had in the fridge. So we'll do that side. I'll flip this guy over. All right, that looks good to me. So what I'm gonna do now is just put them back in the smoker to let the sauce set up, and then these ribs will be done. Before we get to the taste test, I want to thank Chef's Temp for sponsoring this video. I've been using the Chef's Temp Final Touch X10 for over a year now, and it's really been serving me well with its super fast, accurate readings, fully rotatable probe design, and a magnet so I can easily stick it to my fridge or smoker. And this is a really cool feature that I really like. It has a hold button so I can reach into the back of the smoker, take the temperature of the meat, and hit the hold button, and then pull it out, and I can lock in that temperature so I can look at it. It has a large, fully lit display, which is really handy in situations like this when it's really dark out, and it has an IP67 waterproof rating, which is great for washing off barbecue sauce and grease without risk of harming it. It's got a super long 3,000 hours of battery life, which means it'll last for years without a battery change. So if you guys want to take your barbecue game to the next level with a premium instant read thermometer, I highly recommend the Chef's Temp Final Touch X10. Click the link in the description section below and use code STBBQ15 to get 15% off any product on the Chef's Temp website, including the Final Touch X10. All right, let's get back to the video. Okay, so we got both racks of ribs here. This is the steam-injected rack of ribs, so we'll put that to the side, and these are the control ribs. These are ribs from the offset smoker that did not have steam being injected into the cooking chamber. So I'm gonna slice into this one first. Let me just landmark where the bone is here. I'm just gonna go like this. There we go. I would have screwed that up. Nice double rib here. Big ol' rib. Take a look at that. It's looking good. Give you guys a nice close-up. If we squeeze it, lots of moisture coming out. Looking pretty juicy. Let's take a bite. That's a pretty good rib. It's got a nice bite-through consistency on that second bite that I just had. It's very tender, very juicy. It's got some smoke flavor. It's got a lot of good things going for it. Really good flavor from the rub. I'm gonna take one more bite of another rib here. Taste is good, texture is good, smoky flavor, pretty good rib. Now, before I taste the steam-injected ribs, I'm just gonna have a saltine cracker here, cleanse my palate, and a little bit of water. Man, those are dry. You ever played that game before where you have to eat 10 saltine crackers and then say like Fuzzy Bunny or something? I remember I played that game once. It does not go well. All right, let's get a nice slice of a middle rib. I'll do a double rib cut if I can find where this rib goes. There we go. And I'll follow that one along too. Give you guys a nice close-up. Rip. Good bark. Probably better bark formation than the last rib, I would say. Let's look at the, oh yeah, nice smoke ring. Probably a better smoke ring actually than that last rib that we just saw. But it looks like it has more juiciness inside, but let's see how it tastes. The first thing that I noticed is that it's a lot more smoky than the other set of ribs. I'm gonna try one more. I'll show you this, guys. This looks super juicy. That is a super juicy rib. That's good. Time for some conclusions. Compared to the control rack of ribs, the rack of ribs that had the steam injected into the cooking chamber were noticeably smokier, a lot more smoky than the control ribs, which was really interesting. My theory there is that the ribs are staying more moist throughout the cook, and moisture attracts smoke particles more effectively, so it's getting more smoke flavor. Second thing is it was juicier. So I don't really know what's going on there, but my theory is that there's less evaporative cooling happening because there's more moisture content in the air and the ribs end up juicier as a result. That is what I found in this experiment anyway. And the third thing that I found is that the smoke ring of the ribs that were steam injected was a lot thicker than the other ribs that were the control ribs. My theory for this is that, again, the higher humidity and moisture content in the air is somehow speeding up that chemical reaction with the myoglobin in the meat, and it's creating a thicker smoke ring faster. So that will be interesting to explore in more depth, but that's something that I also noticed in this experiment. But I'm interested to hear from you guys. Where should I take this steam injection theme? Should I try it on different meats like pork butt, or different barbecue cuts like maybe short ribs? Or should I try to improve on my design and add like an intermittent system where it spritzes for 10 minutes and then shuts off for 20 minutes? Or should I try to design something that isn't just this cheap Amazon steam cleaner that I have to refill every 20 minutes and shoots hot steam into the chamber, and try to do something from the hose, more like an irrigation system that spritzes atomized, misted cold water into the chamber? You guys let me know. I'm interested to hear from you guys. And if you want to get more involved in the Smoke Trails barbecue community, consider joining my Patreon. I just added a detailed how-to video on how to build a sous vide holding chest. If you guys are interested in that, you can join the Hero Squad or above tier on my Patreon to get access to that video. And I'll be adding more content on how to design and improve on the holding chest concept. You can join the Smoke Trails Barbecue Nerds group on Facebook, or you can just subscribe, like this video, drop a comment below. It all helps. Thanks for watching, guys, and happy smoking.